Ladies and gentlemen, what was being spoken in whispers till yesterday, today was confirmed with this video that the US itself tweeted out. Just take a look at it. The 104 Indians who were on board the US military aircraft were not just brought back home, they were brought back in handcuffs and in shackles. Imagine, ladies and gentlemen, spending a 40-hour flight on a military plane with your hands cuffed and your legs shackled. You can barely move an inch. You have to eat with your hands bound, and you have to share one toilet with 103 other passengers. Now, imagine if all of this is not because you have committed a crime, a felony, a murder, but because you're being brought back home. And your homeland does not protest the way you are treated, just accepts you back, claiming this was par for the course. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the horror story that the first batch of Donald Trump's deported aliens, quote unquote, or illegal immigrants, have shared after touching down at Amritsar yesterday. The group of 104 included 14 women and 13 minors. All the adults, the males, remained in shackles till they touched down on Indian soil. For these people, it has been the culmination of an unending nightmare that saw them first take loans of 40 to 50 lakh rupees, get dumped somewhere in Latin America, then undertake a perilous journey into the United States of America at the risk of their life and limb, get arrested at the border, being sent into detention camps, and finally being deported back to India. Listen to some of these deportees who have now spoken out.
मेरा पैसा 49,50,000 खर्च हुआ है और व्यवस्था ऐसे कि ये कुछ एक्सिस बैंक से लोन लिया हुआ है, कुछ ICICI से लोन लिया और कुछ अपने यार रिश्तेदारों से लोन लिया हुआ है।
कब गए थे आप?
मैं 5 दिसंबर से यहाँ से निकला हूँ 2024 में। हमें बताया गया था वहाँ से रिलीज हो गए आप, हम आपको वेलकम सेंटर लेके जा रहे हैं। वहाँ वेलकम सेंटर होता है जहाँ से रिलीज किया जाता है। हमें धोखेधड़ी से वहाँ से भी लेके आया US गवर्नमेंट हथकड़ियाँ डाल के, और बाद में वहाँ एयरफोर्स का कैंप है, उसके बाजू में वेलकम सेंटर है। तो हमारे को बताया गया था कि वेलकम सेंटर से आप रिलीज हो जाओगे, लेकिन वहाँ ना करते हुए हमारे को प्लेन में डाल दिया गया, जो एयरफोर्स का प्लेन होता है। उसमें 104 बंदे हम डिपोर्ट होके आए।
हाथों में हथकड़ियाँ थी उस दौरान?
हाथों में, पैरों में, अपना यहाँ पर जो चैन होती है कमर में, सब जगह थी।
डोंकी लाके नहीं जाना जी। हाँ जी, 1 नंबर च जाओ। हालात बहुत माड़े आ जी। ਏਜੰਟ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੁਛ ਹੈ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਤੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਕੁਛ, ਇੱਥੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ ਫਸਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ 20 ਦਿਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਪਹੁੰਚਾ ਦਾਂਗੇ, 10 ਤੋਂ 20 ਦਿਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ USA ਪਹੁੰਚਾ ਦਾਂਗੇ, 1 ਨੰਬਰ 'ਚ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਵਾਂਗੇ, ਉੱਥੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀਜ਼ੇ ਲਵਾ ਕੇ ਦੇਵਾਂਗੇ, ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫਲਾਈਟਾਂ ਤੇ ਜਾਓਗੇ। ਉਹ ਵਾਅਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਈਆਂ ਦੇ ਝੂਠੇ ਨਿਕਲਦੇ, ਕਈ ਪਹੁੰਚਾ ਵੀ ਦਿੰਦੇ, ਕਈ ਝੂਠੇ ਨਿਕਲਦੇ।
Now these stories and the video, and I'm going to put that video back on air as well, that the US has put out rather proudly, have not just humiliated the people who have come back, they've humiliated their families as well. But it's not just that, it has horrified an entire nation. It's no one's argument, ladies and gentlemen, that the US was wrong in deporting these people back. They were right. That's their national policy. The argument is that these were not criminals you were dealing with. These were people who came to your country looking for a better life. Deport them, sure, do that. But you have robbed them of their dignity as well. You had no right to do it. Now, this was something that has infuriated the opposition as well. The opposition today has led protests both inside and outside Parliament, moving an adjournment notice that forced the External Affairs Minister of India to address the Rajya Sabha. He, on his part, said that such deportations from India are par for the course and that the use of shackles is allowed in US deportation policy.
It is the obligation of all countries to take back their nationals if they are found to be living illegally abroad. This is naturally subject to an unambiguous verification of their nationality. This is not a policy applicable to any specific country, nor indeed one only practiced by India. that the process of deportation is not a new one. I repeat, not a new one, and has been ongoing for several years. We have been informed by ICE that women and children are not restrained. Further, the needs of deportees, including during transit, related to food and other necessities, including possible medical emergencies, are attended to. During toilet breaks, deportees are temporarily unrestrained if needed in that regard. We are, of course, engaging the US government to ensure that the returning deportees are not mistreated in any manner during the flight.
5 फरवरी को 104 भारतीयों को हाथ में हथकड़ी और पांव में जंजीरें लगाकर, जहां 19 महिलाएं भी शामिल थी, 40 घंटे की यात्रा जिसमें एक टॉयलेट, इस अमानवीय तरीके से उनको जबरन भारत भेजा गया और सरकार चुप्पी साधे रही।
As a Vishwa Guru, I'm asking through you, sir, as a Vishwa Guru, are citizens being shackled in chains, their legs being shackled together, being handcuffed, when countries like Colombia, which don't even figure in the top 10, can send an aircraft and bring their citizens back with dignity? What stops our government from sending one aircraft? We don't have a shortage of it.
Thank you.
अमानवीय तरीके से उनको भारत लाया गया और लाने के बाद भारत की धरती पर जब वो उतर गए तो आप भी उनको सम्मान देने के लिए तैयार नहीं। हरियाणा के कैदी वैन में हमारे नागरिकों को ले जाया गया।
They might be illegal infiltrators or whatever for US. For us, they are our genuine citizens. हमारे नागरिक हैं और चूंकि हमारे नागरिक हैं, how does this deportation align with India's broader policy on protecting its citizens abroad?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's difficult today to not concede here that the opposition has a point. Donald Trump went out of his way to humiliate an ally, a good friend, by sending a US military plane instead of the regular chartered or commercial airlines, even though it costs 5 times more. Yes, the US has deported back Indians since 2005. The number is large, but this is the first time a military aircraft has been sent. And this is the first time that you've had Indian citizens who are being deported back, being chained, being shackled, being handcuffed. And Donald Trump talks about saving taxpayers' money, the American taxpayers' money. How is this justified? How are these figures justified on your screens? You're spending 5 times more money to deport back Indian citizens because you want to make a point. And you're making that point at a time when the Prime Minister of this country, Prime Minister Modi, is meeting you in Washington next week. Yes, there is a delicate balancing act that India needs to do when it comes to domestic outrage over this incident versus Trump's outrageousness. But the question is, has the reaction been too meek? It's not like Trump has not received pushback from other countries where he has sent military planes full of deportees. From Mexico to Colombia to Brazil to Honduras, all Latin American countries, ladies and gentlemen, which have been at the receiving end of Donald Trump's deportation spree, have hit back in some or the other form, appalled with having to receive their citizens in chains. Colombia and Mexico didn't allow US military planes to land and sent their own planes instead to carry back their citizens. Could India not have done the same? Yes, sure. Trump eventually did get all Latin American countries to yield through the threat of sanctions. But point is, was it okay for India to be so meek to not even register a protest, instead try and justify what the US has done? In a week's time, ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of this country is set to meet Donald Trump for the first time since the latter assumed office. Is it now not time for the Vishwa Guru to speak up and send a message that they may be immigrants, these people who have come back may be immigrants, may have entered illegally, but they are still Indians. And most importantly, they are humans. Send them back, but don't send them back while robbing them of their dignity. Leading the protest today was the Congress party. Manish Tewari, Congress MP, joining us on the broadcast. Sir, thank you very much. We've seen those pictures coming out of Parliament, a unique protest there being staged by the opposition today with some of the members in chains as well. Can I ask you what the reason for this protest was? This was a protest against the government, but this was not the government that sent back citizens in chains. This was the US. Why protest against the government?
Well, don't you find the pictures to be absolutely obnoxious and disgusting? Weren't you nauseated by the manner in which people who had gone to the United States, perhaps illegally, but in search of a better life, thinking that the US is the shining beacon on the hill, the epitome of liberty and democracy, shackling people, handcuffing them, stuffing them into planes, sending them back, no clarity as to whether due process has been followed or not. And the government of India accepting this inhuman treatment. And I was appalled at the statement which the foreign minister, Dr. Jaishankar, made in the Lok Sabha today. He said it has been going on since 2012. You've been in television for such a long time. Do you remember any pictures in 2012, 2013, or even after that, of Indians being sent back en masse in US military planes, bound hand and foot as if they were animals? This is absolutely shocking. And the government of India, rather than protesting these absolutely, if I may say, inhuman actions of the United States government or the Trump administration, which strips away every vestige of human dignity, is actually justifying it. If they had agreed to the deportation, the least they could have done is sent their own planes and brought those people back with some dignity. They are not hardcore criminals. They are not terrorists. They are people who went abroad in search of a better life because you're not providing them with those opportunities here. Maybe they did it illegally. And so therefore, doing it illegally does not entitle them to the treatment which has been meted out to them.
But Mr. Tewari, come to think of it, what could the government of India have done? Colombia and Mexico, they too received these US military planes. They sent back these military planes who were carrying their immigrants. But ultimately, they had to buckle. They were threatened with tariffs. And ultimately, Mr. Trump got his way. Maybe India is just being cautious.
Let me take you back to 1947 to contextualize what you are saying. At the end of the Second World War, there were two major superpowers, the United States of America and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. India, which was impoverished, was poor, was literally on its knees after a bloody partition, put together a non-aligned movement of like-minded countries of Latin America, Africa, and Asia to tread the middle path. So therefore, we had the conviction of courage to stand up to two very big superpowers who had won the Second World War at a point in time when we did not have the strength that we have as a country today. And today, when we claim to be the world's fourth largest economy, and we claim to be an emerging power, we claim to be a Vishwa Guru, I don't know which other claim that we make, and to see the humiliating spectacle of our countrymen being sent back in shackles as if they were some caged animals Doesn't that make you hang your head in shame? So if you had agreed to this deportation, then the least you could have done is sent your own planes and brought them back with dignity. That's the point.
Mr. Tewari, are you saying that the Prime Minister, who is now headed to America, he will be there next week, he will be meeting President Donald Trump? Are you suggesting that India and Prime Minister Modi convey in no uncertain terms to President Trump that, look, it's perfectly okay if you're sending back our citizens, but we will send the planes to carry them back. There is no need to humiliate them, put them in chains, then put them onto a military aircraft and send them to us. It's terrible photo ops for anyone who is going to be ruling the nation. And my question to you is, do you think Mr. Trump will be inclined to listen? Because he's catering to his own domestic voter.
Well, first of all, after what has happened and the humiliation which has been meted out to our countrymen, irrespective of whether they went illegally or they were deported after following due process, should make the Prime Minister seriously reconsider as to whether he should be going to the United States. This government which prides itself on muscular nationalism, may I remind them, when one diplomat, one Indian lady diplomat was mistreated by the United States of America in 2013, the actions which were initiated by the then UPA government in order to send a very clear message that this kind of maltreatment will not be tolerated under any circumstances. Not only were people shackled, but those images were put on social media by the head of the US Border Patrol that, look, this is the manner in which we are sending citizens of a country which considers itself to be a world power, which thinks that it can mediate between Russia and Ukraine, which possibly has certain delusions of grandeur that it can sort out the Palestinian-Israeli issue. If you can't protect your own citizens from being humiliated, what kind of a message are you sending to the world? That anybody can just walk all over you? This is not. This is not a Congress, BJP, or an opposition government issue. As a human being, as an Indian, I feel violated today. That's the issue.
But, sir, the External Affairs Minister on the floor of the House today has explained that sending back people in handcuffs and chaining them is part of US policy. It is part of their standard operating procedure on deportation. हम क्या करें इसमें?
Were India to use the same SOPs, would the United States react in this absolutely pussyfooted manner in which Dr. Jaishankar tried to justify it in Parliament? If you were to deport US citizens from India, handcuffed and shackled, denied opportunity to even go to the toilet without being unshackled, having to eat your food with your hands being handcuffed, would the United States accept it? Or any other country accept it? I mean, there are certain basic human rights. There is certain basic dignity which even a convicted person enjoys. You cannot strip away every vestige of human dignity from a person, even though he may have committed an alleged crime. What was done by putting those images out on social media and humiliating these people in such a manner is to send out a message that if you try and come to our country, this is the way. If you are hunted down and caught, this is the way you are going to be treated. It's a message to India. It's a message to the rest of the world that we can jolly well do what we feel like. I'm amazed that this the External Affairs Minister and this government, rather than protesting this inhuman treatment, try to justify it in the Lok Sabha. It's a very sad day for India.
Okay, Mr. Tewari, we leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much for joining us. My guest this evening, Sanjay Jha, is an author joining us on the broadcast. Veena Sikri, our former ambassador, will be with us in just a bit. Major General Sanjay Meston joining us on the broadcast. He's a defense expert. Advocate Chirag Naik is someone who has looked at immigration laws very closely. He's a partner at MZM Legal. We also have Vibhuti Jha, who's affiliated with Mr. Trump's party, joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Jha, I'm going to start with you. Please tell me how this is okay, how the pictures we are seeing on our screens are okay. You want to deport, you deport. You have every right to do it. America has every right to deport every single illegal on their soil. Is this how you do it, sir?
Thank you very much for having me. And I suppose you are referring to this Jha when you asked me to speak here, because there is another Jha there. Anyway, having said that, listen,
that's your brother?
Need not go.
I think everyone now knows that. That's your brother.
That's right. And we don't hide it. So there is no need to get over sentimental about this entire thing. I go with with Mr. Jaishankar's point of view here. Remember a couple of things. Manish Tewari ji was mentioning about dignity and, they do according to their own whims and fancies. Well, he is doing everything according to his whim and fancy. He says whatever he feels like. That's the freedom of speech arena. But here is an important part. The dignity of the Indians migrating or running after paying, you showed the clipping of the gentleman who paid 50 lakhs to a pimp or a broker who facilitated his travel to, and they walked hundreds of miles to come with the help of a coyote into America. That is the loss of dignity. Going back is a very interesting thing. I'm not in favor of anybody shackled. Let's put it this way, very clear. Shackled, chained, or whatever. But the important part is that these people are not under US jurisdiction. They are foreign nationals who entered illegally. What is the degree of crime, whether it's a felony, misdemeanor, or minor crime? I'm not into that judgment. I'm saying they committed a crime to illegally enter the country. Now, when you're deporting them, right? The deporting part is responsibility of the United States government. Think about it for a moment. The number of people who were coming to, according to the US immigration data, there were so many people who were terrorists, alleged terrorists who had gone AOL in the entire immigration saga that 11 million people came. Nobody knows where they came from. The final point which I wanted to say to you is that if these people, if any one of them, if even two of the 104 were terrorist inclined people, and if they had caused a violence in the plane and the plane had crashed, what would you say and what would the world say then? That these people should have been kept in shackles. The question here is very simple. You can pick a side, you can choose a side and take a position. Every country has its own set of laws. I think Manish Tewari ji said it perfectly. Every country has its own set of laws. US, flag burning is freedom of speech. India, it is not. And so when the American tourist who went to Singapore a few years ago, 1 minute, let me just finish this. When US tourist went to Singapore and did his graffiti painting on the walls, he was put behind bars. US screamed and shouted that our law, if he were in our country, nothing would have happened. Singapore told the United States, keep away. That's our law. You can allow graffiti, but we will not allow. So here the issue is very simple. Let's not senti-emotionalize it. It's very important that people are back.
Mr. Jha.
They're safely back. And the point is, I had said 4 days ago in my tweet
Mr. Jha,
that every
I am not questioning the law. I am not questioning the law.
Coming back,
the US has its own law. It wants to
send back
people.
Yeah. So yes, you
are
right.
Here's the point, Mr. Vibhuti Jha. The 18,000 people, एक मिनट सुनिए. these 18,000 people, you're making the point, what if even one or two of these people were, were terrorists or inclined towards a terrorist group? Maybe they could have hijacked the plane. That's the point you're making, which is why everyone has to be handcuffed.
In the realm of
Mr.
possibility,
Vibhuti Jha,
anything can happen, yes.
possibly, that's a possibility. But the fact is, these people 18,000 people have been identified jointly by the United States of America and India. There's a verification that has been done, which is why they are being deported back to India. Are you telling me that the United States of America, in its rush to send back deportees to their particular countries, will even send people who they believe are inclined to terrorist organizations with innocent civilians? उनकी जगह वो plane नहीं है, Mr. Jha. Their place is behind bars. Maybe in the US, maybe in India, but certainly not on a plane which is carrying innocent Indian citizens.
देखिए, वो innocent है या नहीं है, वो हम नहीं जानते हैं. वो यहाँ का अमेरिका का लॉ तोड़ करके अंदर घुसे हैं. इंडिया में 40-50 लाख रुपए देके आए हैं. उनकी क्या mental state थी? Think about it from that point of view. The humiliation is that they paid 50 lakhs of rupees borrowing money from the banks. And I can give you 3 examples. Personally known, I have their phone number in my book. These people, mother and 2 sons, came here giving 1.5 crore of rupees to coyotes. Do you know what these ladies are doing? These ladies are working as maid servants, leaving their businesses behind. I asked them, are you happy the way you came? They said, no, sir, हमें उल्लू बनाया गया, हमें मूर्ख बनाया गया. So we have to investigate those things at our end, that people do not fall here in this category. I'm all for you. I'm an immigrant.
That is a different debate.
So I'm not against immigration. I'm talking about the fact that if Rohingyas are living in India and India welcomes them, it's India's issue. Who am I to complain about that? Therefore, shackles or chains.
We don't welcome them. We want to send them back. We want to send the Rohingyas back. We want to send the Bangladeshis back, but we will certainly not send them back in military airplanes shackled and handcuffed. This is simply indecent. This is robbing people of their dignity. They are illegals. They are not criminals. But let me get Sanjay Jha in. I've heard you. I wanted to hear your point of view. I've done that. Sanjay Jha.
You quoted a rate that this US spent a boatload of money, 5 times the first class fare of American airline.
Yeah.
If you ever find $853 for an aircraft first class flight from San Diego to or LA or New York to India, $853, let me know. I'll buy it from you, the first one to buy. Thank you.
Okay. Sanjay Jha, would you want to come in here? Essentially, the point that is being made from the United States of America is don't get too sentimental about it. This is the law. This is our law. And you just have to deal with it.
Shreya, I'm not surprised that Mr. Jha said it for 2 reasons. One, he's now an American citizen, and his oath and his commitment is to Uncle Sam. Number 2, he also happens to be part of the Trump's Republican Party, so he has his political loyalties, and he's living up to that fidelity. He doesn't have to worry about people like us who live in India and who understand the pain and suffering of the common man. Now, I'm going to just tell you a couple of points. We should not be astonished by what Donald Trump is doing because he's following the madman theory. The United States, by the way, has walked out of the UN Human Rights Council. So if they disrespect us, Indians, even if they were illegal migrants, I'm not going to be surprised. But what shames me, what disappoints me, is India's external affairs minister trying to rationalize and justify this without even probably insinuating that the government will make a statement on it, because they should. This is a government, Shreya, that actually accused the US government of interfering in India's affairs because they wanted to justify Gautam Adani. And when poor Indians who, by the way, forced out of their desperation, they are forced out of desperation from India to pay to the touts and the other people to go to overseas destinations, and they believe America is the land of dreams. They have been taken for a ride. That's a different story. Can the Trump administration demean, humiliate, mortify, and make the person scarred for life? I mean, I can imagine today if any one of us on your panel were have handcuffed and our legs were chained for 40 hours and we were being forcibly deported from a country, and our own external affairs minister and the government says is par for the course, I'll feel sorry about that. First, I expect Mr. Modi's government to apologize to all those young people in India, to the families in India, to the women that Mr. Jha quoted who left in desperation for forcing our people out. Why haven't you created a social and economic and political environment that makes us stay in what we believe is a great country? And by the way, since Mr. Jha mentioned there could be potential terrorists, I'll tell you why I disagree with that. If America is completely so blind to a potential terrorist which is there being deported, then that terrorist should have been in Guantanamo Bay, not on a plane to India, chained and handcuffed, and without even the Indian government being given notice about it. I mean, what are we talking about? I think the bottom line is this, Shreya.
Okay.
4,300 millionaires are leaving this country. They will go abroad, they will go to Bahamas, they'll go to Spain, they'll go to the EU, they'll go to America, they will invest in a property and get a citizenship right, and they will run a business. What does a poor man do who doesn't have a job in this country? I mean, I remember a lot of people saw Rajkumar Hirani's movie Donkey, and they thought it was probably a commercial entertainer. But you're seeing these realities on the ground. And I'm not speaking as some kind of a sentimental hawk. I'm talking about basic respect for human dignity. And the irony, Mr. Modi's government campaigned for Donald Trump saying, "Ab ki baar Trump Sarkar." How absolutely cowardly and politically immoral can we be?
Major General Sanjay Meston, has the government of India's response been too weak?
To leave for an
too
appointment.
meek? I ask you this question because
I just wanted to respond
go
to
ahead,
Sanjay
Mr. Jha.
Jha's
If you need to
two
leave, I'll quickly let you
accusations
make your
Yes, I got
comments.
to go as well. The important part here is, today he is talking about sentimental part. He talks about the fact that I am wedded to Republican Party. I'm a proud American as much as I pride in my Indian heritage. There's no doubt about that. But I'm not the Republican Party candidate who toes Republican Party line just because I'm a Republican. I speak the truth. I'm not the one who is expelled from his party and still does bootlicking of the party that threw me out. Thank you very much.
Are, don't get personal here. Thank you very much. Don't get personal on this show. I know both of you. I know you're good people individually. Thank you very much. Major General Meston, sorry to keep you waiting there. My question to you was simple. Has India's response been too meek? First, yesterday, an attempt to try and ensure that no pictures come out. When there are questions asked, those questions were ignored. Today, the opposition had to quite literally force the Indian government to make a statement. And that statement, to most common citizens, sounded like a justification for what the US has done. Again, I'm saying I'm not questioning the law. I'm not questioning the deportation. I'm questioning the way it has been done. And I'm questioning the way it has been done to an ally, a country that you call a good friend.
Shreya, good evening. I would say there are two very, very serious issues. The first issue is, I think President Trump has put this on social media. I think this affects the dignity of any individual human being, and that is a very, very serious issue, which certainly is an issue I'm quite sure the government of India would do the needful. Because, you know, projecting everyone and showing them in shekels is definitely not in good taste, and especially by a country like the America. The second point worth analyzing is, it's a very security related issue, and as a soldier I would like to highlight that how it is happening that today Indians are being lured by some people in this country, and they are being sent to Russia on the pretext of some job, and they are fighting the wars along with Russia, and so many of them have even died. How is it happening? How is it happening that some Indians are today going to Cambodia and they are being forced to indulge in cyber fraud, and they are taught over there and they are given all these lessons? And some, of course, are going to Western America. So there is a racket. I think it's a security related issue which concerns India the maximum. Because if this is happening, I'm quite sure the other way also it is happening. And today we have hostile neighbors, and we also as a country have been facing very high numbers of illegal immigration. Now, my question, Shreya, would be, which I would put a different dimension. See, we have got neighboring countries. All of them have got land borders, but some countries also we have territorial waters. For example, Sri Lanka. I'll just give you 2 points. It is worth consideration. Let's assume, and it is happening, number of times, whether from Pakistan, whether from Sri Lanka, many times the Indian Coast Guard apprehends people, illegal migrants who are in our territorial waters.
Sure.
The rule is very, very clear. They apprehend them, and on the ship, when they are captured, we have to keep them in the safe custody. If anyone is hostile, obviously, we do not know whether he's a terrorist, he's a simple civilian. He's just strayed aside, or maybe he's inside the territorial waters of India. So the rule is very, very clear, and this is our rule, the country's rule, that he's apprehended, and if he's arrogant, and if he's trying to be this thing, then he's also handcuffed, and then we don't allow them to move around on the ship. He is kept, all the group is kept, and thereafter he's tried in India. He's handed over to the civil police, he's tried, and after due course of law, when he's apprehended, he's put in prison, he's repatriated. Now coming on to repatriation. Yeah, I'm just coming to repatriation.
Major General Maston, I agree to the point you're making, but the point is, I want to ask you, what was the fear here? A, you send a military plane, you are making a point. You are essentially saying that these people who we are sending back were invaders, and this is a military operation. There's a reason why Trump is using military aircraft for his deportation spree. I think all of us know that. Number two, sir, the point that you're making, mid-sea, I understand if you apprehend a smuggler and you put them on your naval ship and you deport him back. I understand that. Maybe you have to handcuff that person. The person could do anything. In this case, sir, this is a flight. Even if someone is not handcuffed and chained, what will that person do? That person cannot open the darwaza and jump off, na, sir?
No, I agree with you.
That's the limited point I'm making. My question to you was simple. But Major General, my question to you was simple. My question to you was whether India's response has been way too meek. Even countries like Colombia, which just, by the way, are big allies of the United States of America, have a great relationship, have stood up to the bullying and said these military planes will not land. And we will send our planes to pick our citizens up. And we will do it with dignity. We will not receive our citizens in a military plane handcuffed. Yes, Colombia had to pay the price for it. It had to face the threat of tariffs. But at least they stood up and protested. At least they have sent their own planes to bring back their citizens. Why couldn't India have done the same, sir?
See, for me to comment whether the government has been weak is incorrect, because I'm not aware about the full modalities. But coming on to this issue, probably what I feel, the way President Trump yesterday announced on Gaza, even I think Netanyahu was not aware. So maybe that what has happened, government of India definitely has accepted that. Yeah, I'll just complete that these were illegal immigrants. So government of India has accepted, but the way they have been deported back, perhaps this has come as a shocker. I am quite sure now that Prime Minister Modi will reckon up. And I think now either we have the option to send our own aircraft or tell the United States that this is not the way to deport our people. So some kind of thing has to be worked out.
So essentially you're telling me that there is a good chance, Major General, essentially you're telling me there's a good chance that India didn't know that a military aircraft is being sent. Achal Malhotra, as a former ambassador, do you think that is possible? That two countries...
Shreya, I just corrected, not military aircraft. The manner of deporting them. Military aircraft known, but how, whether they'll be handcuffed, no, that was not known. That is what I...
Got the point. Got the point. Okay. Achal Malhotra, I'm glad the Major General clarified his point here. So maybe the point being made is maybe India knew that a military aircraft is being sent, but they didn't know how the civilians or the deportees on board that plane will be treated. Sir, anyone who reads the newspapers every day will know if you're sending back deportees in a military plane, you're chaining them, you're handcuffing them. If it can happen to allies like Colombia and Mexico, it can certainly happen with India. Can we argue that maybe the government of India didn't know?
No, I don't think we can argue that government of India didn't know, more so because External Affairs Minister in his statement has said this is a recurring and this is a practice. So obviously the government of India is aware of this practice.
Correct.
That they are restrained. I mean, the fact that he said he has given from 2009 till today that so many people year-wise, they have been deported, and he said this is the military, this is the American law, this is the way Americans do. So obviously the government of India knows about it. What are the issues here? 3-4 issues quickly. One, of course, is the larger issue of illegal immigration or immigration or migration, the issue of immigration migration. Our policy is quite clear. We are against illegal immigration, and we encourage only legal migration, and we are in favor of mobility of the people through legal means across the world. There should be no restrictions as far as possible. There's a mobility and migration agreements that we have signed with countries like UK, Italy, Austria, many other countries, not with the United States of America. Second is the manner in which the Americans have, sent them back. Definitely, human dignity, the issue of human dignity is involved. Can't be justified only on the grounds that this is the way Americans do it. If they do it, they better mend their ways. But, there was a mention, somebody said this is being done because there could be a terrorist, there could be, plane could be. But fact of the matter is, this is a fact. I read somewhere there have been 3 or 4 cases of knee-jerk reaction from the deportees from different countries, and they committed suicide. And that probably could have been one reason, so that to sort of restrain them. Possibly, I'm not sure about it. But then, of course, the third larger issue is why should we? I mean, we can't oppose the deportation per se. We have our own foreigner sect. Article 14 of the foreigner sect says if anybody is illegally staying here, we have the right to deport them. We have to accept by the international, the code of conduct that we must accept them subject to verification. Fourth, of course, is the domestic issue. Why? We know it. It's an open secret. There's a big mafia. There's an industry running into crores of rupees. And this can't be done.
Mr. Malhotra, all of that is fine. You can't give me statistics since 2006 and say, oh, this has been happening and the deportations have been happening since 2006 and we need to crack down on human trafficking, etc. All of that is given, sir. All of that is given. I am not disagreeing with you even for a moment.
So what is the issue?
Or with what the US has done. I'm just disagreeing. The issue is the way these people have been brought back home, being robbed of their basic dignity. That is the issue, Achal Malhotra, and which you have said is wrong.
That's what I'm saying. And that I said, I made 2 points.
But could India,
One, the government of India knew. The government of India knows that this is done this way and they did nothing about it. And possibly, they have kept quiet because there is a summit meeting coming up in next couple of weeks. Not even couple of weeks. I think 12th, 13th of February. So probably they didn't want to initiate that.
12th and 13th, yeah.
And particularly considering the Trump's mood at this point of time. So that could be one reason. Now, why is this year it has been pointed out, 1,369 people have been deported last year. Why nobody from the United States made it an issue? I mean, publicized it?
Because
simple reason.
Because nobody came back in chains and handcuffs.
So they must have, because the way EAM is himself saying that this has been the procedure.
There have been chartered flights that have brought these people back home. This is the first time, sir. This is the first time that military planes have brought them home. And the fact is, this is the first time. I mean, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time they've been brought back in handcuffs and chains. No, we clearly know that Trump is playing to his audience in America. But he's alienating a friend.
I don't remember a single media coverage of this year because Trump is making a political statement, giving a message that immigration has been a part of my campaign. And look how serious I am about it. I'll do this. I'll pack up everybody and send in a military aircraft. So you should not ignore that point also. So last year, kyun nahi cover kiya aap logon ne?
Okay, no, I'm not. My focus today entirely is on why India's response has been so meek. Meek to the point of actually justifying it in Parliament. At least raise a voice. At least protest.
I'm giving you the
okay,
reason.
yeah, I know. You're saying that there is a summit meeting next week.
Yes,
yeah, you have done that. Chirag Naik, let me get an advocate. Okay.
I'm not justifying it. I'm saying this is
okay,
the reason.
I was talking about the External Affairs Minister, sir.
No,
I was talking about the External Affairs Minister. Anyway, let me get in Chirag Naik in. He's an advocate. Yeah, he looks at immigration law. He's joining us on the broadcast as well. Mr. Naik, while much has been said about the way illegal Indians have been brought back to India, what has happened is a gross violation of human rights. And frankly, if you call yourself the civilized world, this is not the way you behave. You have behaved in a most uncivil manner and to citizens of a country who you claim is a friend. Okay? But Advocate Chirag Naik, there are enough and more people also making the point that, well, they are criminals under US law and they will be treated like criminals. And that these people, there is this long sob story about how they were duped by agents and how trafficking, the government of India now saying we'll bring in a law to stop this human trafficking, etc., etc. Every one of those people who actually goes across knows exactly what they are getting into. Will you agree with me there?
Well, that is circumstantial, but more or less people are aware if they're overstaying their visas or illegally entering the US. So I could not make a blanket statement on that for sure, Shreya. I think the point we are missing is, of course, all of us can agree on one point, that illegal immigration is really based and really, preys on desperation of people. I think all illegal immigrants, whatever nationalities they might be, they are doing it out of desperation. They know that they are illegally entering. And the only thing at the real service that the government of India can now do, yes, of course, shackling them and restraining them is, of course, a violation of basic human rights. Just in the defense of the External Affairs Minister, I would like to say that women and children, as clearly stated in its statement, were not restrained. The restraining was only limited to male deportees. Even that is a questionable position, but of course, you have to understand the mindset of the person being deported. You showed a story that a gentleman who had borrowed lakhs of rupees, for him, probably coming back to India may be worse than death. Somebody who's so indebted and has bet all his life savings on illegal immigration, why would he want to come back? And any kind of situation could take place on board. So I think that is something we must not lose sight of. I think the External Affairs Minister has already stated that they're taking it up with the US authorities. But I think the real service the government of India should do is, why is there no FIR against people who have taken such money? You had in the External Affairs Minister's speech in the Parliament that thousands of people have been deported over the years through successive governments. No FIR against people who are running these rackets. You have not used the law. Even today, I think they were deported on the 5th. We have no FIR by the CBI recording the statements of all these 104 people as to whom did they pay. They didn't pay to people outside India.
Okay.
So I think we are losing sight of the main issue. We are not trying to alleviate the desperation and the hardship of the people who try to live in such manner. And the thing is, the External Affairs Minister has clearly
you have a point
considered
of view.
We are the largest, one of the largest groups out there, Indians. I think 700,000 people are living there illegally. Media reports said 20,000 looking at imminent deportation. So I think we should look at the bigger picture, and the government of India should really take action today, right now, and freeze some assets, arrest some people, and try and stop this.
The point is, why start now? Just because we have these pictures coming out and there's an entire country that is raging about it. We know for a fact that illegal immigration to the US and in other countries has been happening for time immemorial. We also know that these deportations have been going on since 2005. The largest story will maybe stopping illegal immigration. But today the story is this: can an ally do this to an ally? And should a country like India, a country of 1.4 billion people, just sit quietly and bear this humiliation? Because humiliation this is. And Chirag Naik, here's the point to your point about able-bodied men on board that flight, possibly out of desperation trying to commit suicide. Well, the same then goes for women as well, right?
I never used that word.
They are desperate as well, and they could commit suicide as well. So chain them as well.
The thing is,
no, I was just
anyway.
to
The point is, I wanted all views
respect
in.
our own people. I think we can't dismiss their hardship and the desperation factor there. If we don't respect that desperation,
you have to respect your own people. But when your own people get disrespected by an ally, you need to call them out as well, and you need to stand up and say this is not okay. What India has done is not saying it's not okay, and that to me is the story today. But anyhow, I wanted your point of view in. I've got that. Thank you, everyone. Advocate Chirag Naik, thank you very much. I'm afraid I'm completely out of time, gentlemen. Major General Meston, thank you very much. Achal Malhotra, I know you wanted to say more. No time, sir. Run out of time. Thank you very much. Sanjay Jha, thank you. Thank you for being part of this panel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. It's a wrap from me. Shreya Dhoundial is joining you next.